Hey everybody, Traceman Styles back once again to kind of keep that Q&A thing going. So hopefully you heard the first part there and decided to come back for more. So anyways, let's jump right back into the questions there. The next one here was who played rhythm guitar on the live cut of Traceman Cometh? Well, as I said on the end of the first one, I did all the guitars. So I did the rhythm guitar and the lead guitar. So that was actually not a true live cut there. And for those that saw through it, it's we just kind of put in an audience there. It was one of those kind of Elton John, Benny and the Jets kind of things there, where the song was done and it was a pretty aggressive song, but it just didn't sound right. It needed something. So I was talking to Ron Gallagher, who was mixing it at the time, and I'm just like, what do we put an audience in there? So we put the audience in there, and to just really kind of give it the feel, and I think we hit it there. So, but yeah, the answer to that, who played rhythm guitar, that would have been me. Uh, Next one is was your first album is done. Are you happy with it? That's a really good question. Overall, I am happy with it. I don't think I would have released it if I wasn't. Musically, I spent an awful long time on the guitar tracks. I mean, we got the drum tracks done, we got the bass tracks done, and then I pretty much just was locked up in the studio, just me and my former partner pushing the buttons there, engineering, and I spent so much time putting down guitar tracks and putting down guitar tracks and putting down guitar tracks until I finally felt that it was right. And one of the great parts about working in a studio and doing the recording thing is you come across what I called accidental miracles, which you end up just doing something that you didn't plan, and just kind of your plan is like, hey, where did that come from? Well, that's great. We're gonna keep it, and that's just a rush when that happens. But there was some things that I wish I could do different, but honestly, I've been working on that album for so long that when Ron was doing the mixing on it, there was some stuff that I was just kind of like, I could probably go for the rest of my life and say, hey, let's go back in and change that. Let's go back in and change that. And I had to get to a point where I just said, you know what, let it go, without compromising anything. I didn't want to compromise quality. I didn't want to do anything like that. And I really don't feel that I did. Overall, I'm happy with it musically. Vocally, Ron did a great job on the vocals. So overall, I'm happy with it. One big thing that I wish we could have done different was on the song "Waiting," which is basically an acoustic song I do on my 12 string, and then with some kind of leads, kind of in the breaks and that kind of stuff. At the end of that song, there's actually more to that song. It kind of like fades out on this fading, note there that kind of ghosts out, and then at that point it kind of kicks in. There's like, kind of that comes back in. Then I do this kind of like a Tom Schultz and Peace of Mind, where he'll do this little lead riff thing there. It kind of goes for about 10 seconds or so. Then he'd come back over and harmonize, come back over and harmonize. And I did that same thing in this one. And I probably harmonized about 5 times maybe, and then just kind of let that go like that. Then I kind of came in and did this lead over it, the solo over it. And I liked it, but the drums were off. And we were trying to fix it and trying to fix it. And we even had drummer Dave come in and try and lay some more. It just wasn't working. And it was kind of like, we're going to have to just do all this to try and fix it. And I was like, you know what? Just skip it, man. We'll just leave that part off. So I'm really bummed about that, because I really liked that part of the song. And I'm going to have to reprise it at some point and bring that back out, because I really did like it. But overall, yeah, I'm happy with it. And I really wouldn't have released it if I wasn't. This was a kind of a crazy question. Do you have a favorite song of yours that you like to play? And the answer there is not really. I mean, it was like I really don't sit down and play songs from my album, And I remember listening to Geddy Lee talking about how, yeah, I never listened to my albums. He doesn't listen to the old Rush albums, and he hasn't heard like Caress of Steel in how many years. And And not that I'm comparing myself to Rush, but I'm just saying that you know other musicians say that, and I don't know why. There's times when I enjoy listening to it. Now that I can actually, it's done, and I can step out of the producer artist role and just listen to it and then enjoy it. I like that part, but I really don't sit down and play songs from it. So the answer to that one is I really don't have one. Um, Boy, tough one here. Why aren't you playing in a working band? Well, I guess there's several reasons there. One is in my life. I mean, I started playing my first band when I was 17. I've played in a lot of bands over the years. I've played. I did a lot of studio work. I guess I think that most guitar players that are like not out, you know, big record contracts touring the world, I think most guitar players, they probably do a lot more playing, a lot more gigging and not as much studio, where it was probably a little bit of the opposite, where I did an awful lot of studio work. I did an awful lot of session work. And, I remember this one band that I produced it and then I played on a couple tracks for them. And I went into a store and I saw the album for sale, and I'm picking it up and I want to go to the people, hey, I'm on this, this is me, kind of a thing there. But so there was a couple like that were for sale in a store. So, but especially in my 30s, I didn't really play a whole lot of bands, but I was playing a lot in the studio. And of course, life happens, and things that just kind of pull you out and that kind of thing. There. Another thing now is, I mean, I enjoy playing in a band, and I played with some guys. I played in Gray Logic in 2001 up until 2001. That was drummer Dave Forback, Jimmy Regan on bass, and Tara Merrill on vocals, which she was just absolutely phenomenal vocalist. Incredible range, beautiful voice. And when Tara left, we picked up John Garrett, and John kind of stepped in for a while there, and then that kind of moved on to a different band where it was me and drummer Dave and John. But then Jimmy moved away, and we got my friend Bill Kitley, who played on the album, back in there. We kind of did some playing and that kind of stuff. But and also, it's like I live in mid-Michigan. I live in Lansing, Michigan, where there's a million guitar players just like me. So, it's like, really, it's one of those things where when a guitar player leaves a band, they've probably got the guy already replaced by the time they are talking about doing any auditioning. So it's a tough area to get into. I'm currently kind of working with some guys right now that we'll kind of see what happens. It could be cool. It could work. I hope so, because there's some really good musicians in this that I'd like to see kind of pan out. So we'll see. We'll see. Also, man, I'm not a spring chicken anymore, and it's just I don't really have the desire to get out there and play every weekend or that kind of thing there. So, but I'm really enjoying writing and recording. That's still a really big part that I just really enjoy a lot. Uh, Do you listen to modern music? What kind of music do you listen to? Do I listen to modern music? Oh, dear God, no. I really don't care for modern music, even in the least. The music I do listen to is, older stuff. I mean, it's like I've got every Rush album. I've got most of the Zeppelin albums, and, I've got eight. I got Queen's first 8 albums, and so really, it's just a lot of the older stuff, Satriani, and that kind of stuff. But there's really not anything modern that really kind of trips my trigger. Now, Greta Van Fleet, I'll say, they're a band from here in Michigan, not too about an hour north from me, and those guys can play. They sound a lot like Zeppelin. It's kind of crazy, but that's about as deep as it's going to get. So let's see. You use the term hometown heroes a lot. who are these hometown heroes? So my hometown heroes are a group of players that just mean the world to me. So I've said I grew up in a small town called Eaton Rapids, which is about 20 miles south of Lansing, Michigan. Lansing being the capital city of Michigan and where I live now. But growing up in Eaton Rapids, there's like maybe what, 4,000. It's a pretty small town. And but yet it's loaded with guitar players. Back in the 70s, it was just loaded with guitar players, and not just guitar players, but good guitar players. And they all had one thing in common, and that's that they took lessons from Max Butler. And Max was the teacher. He was a guitar teacher, and he made his own amps. Made his own amps, really good amps. And so if you took lessons from him, you were in. If you took lessons and had one of his amps, you were in. So these pretty much everyone that I knew that played guitar took lessons from Max, and he was just one of those guys that just knew how to just reach in and just find that gift and stir it and pull it out, and he did. So who are my hometown heroes there? So there was a band called Crystal Illusion that played in Eaton Rapids a lot, and I knew the guys. I knew the drummer really well, and the bass player. It was Bill Izzy Isabel on drums, Steve Sharp on bass, Chris Hartford, who was playing rhythm guitar back then, and then Brent Mortimer, who was playing lead. And then I ended up playing in a band with Bill and Steve later, but I was really young, and I knew the bass. I knew the drummer because I went to school with his younger brother, and I would go watch those guys play all the time, and they just blew my mind because the guitar players, Chris and Brent, those guys were good, and they played really well together. And it was just, like I said, it's kind of funny because Chris pretty much just played rhythm for Brent back then. And Chris is such a good guitar player now, amazingly good guitar player now. But he was playing rhythm back then. And Brent Mortimer was the lead guitar player. And I believe he was around like 17 years old back then. And this guy could do stuff that was just like, what? It's like whatever they did, he did so well. And he had just this ripping sound. He could just played those leads, played those solos so fiercely. And I remember them playing Freebird, and Brent did the slide, and then he did the solo to it as well. And I saw them do that many, many times, but Brent never had his slide, so he would use a cigarette lighter, or he would use an Allen wrench or a screwdriver. But whatever he was using, he did it really well, and he could just really sound like Gary Rossington on that slide. And then that solo, he could do that solo note for note. And I still talk to Brent and Chris. And not too long ago, I asked Brent, like, how did you play that one riff in the Freebird solo? And he was telling me, I was like, oh, okay, right. So just watch those guys a lot. Over the years, Chris has just gotten to be so good, and he never stopped playing, and he went on to play with Mickey Finn, and he played with the Coasters down by the boardwalk from the '60s. He hooked up with them and they did a tour with them, and he's just one of those guys that is always playing, and it's kind of like I have to believe he's just in pretty high demand because he's always in a band, always in a band, and they're always really good. And I went and seen him live, oh gosh, many times, and he's just a very complete player. I mean, it's like, he knows his chord theory so well, and he just plays such good riffs, and his tone and his sound is just so good, and he's really good at just tearing his sound apart and putting the effects together to really get what he needs. And to this day, I'll still get together with him and just see what he's doing and how he's doing it, and it's just a mind blower to me. Such a good player. Who else? Boy Wonder, who was Don Dove on drums. My friend Ron Gallagher, who sang on my album and mixed it as well. Ron played bass and vocals, and then Mike Swan on guitar for Boy Wonder, and I used to watch those guys play as well. And God, Swan was just so damn good, and he played like a Les Paul or in an Explorer, that kind of thing, and he was just what I would call just a badass guitar player. Jeez, he was just really good. He just looked so damn scary. It's like you didn't know if he was gonna play guitar for you or kick your ass. I don't know. It was gonna be one of the two though. And you know, but I got to be friends with Ron pretty quick, and he was very cool and let me come and hang out with them and watch them rehearse and just ask a million questions. He was just very gracious to always spend time with a younger player and kind of help me. I remember him talking to me a long time ago when I was just a teenager about dynamics over just riffs and that kind of thing, and just forget about speed, work on dynamics kind of thing there. And that was something that just never left me. And and obviously he's working on my album, so he's still a big person to me. Al Zorn, who was a big one. Al Zorn was he was the guy that kept the town in supply, we'll say. He had this two-tone green van he would drive around in, and he would be down the island park there and open up his van and plug his Les Paul in a pig nose and wail, or that kind of thing. And he was just he was a really good player. Mark Miller was another guy that played in some bands there that was just he was just really good, and ended up opening a studio that's still to this day up and running, Miller Studio, and just lots of guys. I would have to say the biggest influence to me though was my hometown hero was Daryl Orr, who I'm just very happy to say is a very good friend of mine. And while I knew him back then, we got to be really good friends over the years. And I knew him way back in the day, but then he started playing in a band in the 80s called Rich Kids. And Rich Kids, Mike Swan left Boy Wonder to play in Rich Kids. So you had Mike Swan and Daryl Orr together, and that was such an amazing guitar duo. And they were huge in Michigan. They toured all over Michigan on the bar circuit, but then they were really big in Florida. They were really big in Texas. So these guys would go from Michigan to Florida up to Texas and back. They were playing like 6 nights a week. And I'll tell you what, man, that was probably one of the best bar bands I've ever seen in my life. It's hard to just call them a bar band because they were just so good. And I always thought that while Swan was great, but I just liked Daryl so much more. And I ended up becoming really good friends with him when I knew Daryl was good friends with Max Butler as well, and he played some Butler amps. Matter of fact, these amps I have, 2 of these amps, these two here, the 2 black ones right here, those are Daryl's amps that he played back in the Rich Kids days. And so I've seen him play with those amps so many times, and but we end up talking about the amps and that kind of stuff. Next thing you know, we're getting together. Next thing you know, we're putting a band together. And I always call that the best band I was ever in that never really got launched. Oh my God. It was like Daryl and I got together every weekend and worked on songs. And man, I'll tell you what, you worked on them until they were perfect. And we were doing some great stuff like Hotel California and Jessica by the Allman Brothers and, Carry On Wayward Son and Might As Well Go for a Soda by Kim Mitchell, and just some really great songs. And we did the Grand Funk, I'm Your Captain, Closer to Home, and Those Shoes, where we did dual guitar talk boxes. We got that wow, and it was great, but we just never really got it launched. We had Bill Kitley on bass and on that one, and we brought Tara Merrow from Great Logic. She started singing with us for a while, but she was about 2 hours away, and she would drive down every other weekend for rehearsals, and then her and her husband Charlie would stay with Charlie's parents, I believe, and then who were down in the area, and then they would drive back, and that was just awful hard. So that was a tough one there. So it never really got launched, but I at least can say I got to play with Daryl for a while, and that was such a rush because he was just my biggest hometown influence. But I also got to play with Chris Hartford, and that was a rush too, because I went and saw a Crystal Illusion reunion, and Chris and Brent and Brent Mortimer and Chris Hartford and Steve Sharp and Bill Isabel. They were all getting together, and I'm hanging out with Bill that night, and I said, hey, Crystal Illusion's doing a reunion thing. We got to go. Bill was like, oh, I can't go. And so I went by myself, and so I was watching it, and just like, wow, Crystal Illusion again. Wow, this is great, you know. And then Brent was up from. He lives down south now. He had to catch an early flight, and he had to leave. So they still had some sets to go, and Brent had to leave. So all of a sudden, I hear Brent steps down. I hear Izzy yell, "Styles, come up!" You know, and I'm just like, what's going on here? And then I kind of, you know, I knew once I got the nod from Chris to come up that it was okay. So I actually went up and got to play with Crystal Illusion. And I end up lucked out where I either knew the song already, where I knew it enough where I could watch Chris for the changes and then just make it through. And Chris was really cool and would say, take a solo. So, you know, whatever key we were in, key of D I would take off, or key of G I would take off. And he was really cool about giving me some solos there. And it was a rush getting to play with those guys too. So these are all the guys that just really impacted me so ferociously. And just made a really big impact on me and kind of helped shape who I am. So to all those guys, Eric Shea being another one. I left Eric Shea out. Eric Shea was another one. I went to high school with him. He was 2 years older than me. And he ended up playing in a band called Brat. That was a really good band that they played around Michigan as well, too. So all these guys just had such a big impact on me. And so incredibly grateful for them. And so great to be able to still be in touch with the vast majority of them. So thank you guys. I appreciate that, all of you guys. And I'm about at 20 minutes here, so I'm going to cut it off yet again and try and finish it up on the next one. Again, hit subscribe and stay up on anything going on. I promise there's more to come, okay? Take care.